Thanks for joining us today, guys. Today we are joined by Tracey Sofra, and excited for her to share a little bit about her journey and her perspective with us today. So, Tracey, do you mind introducing yourself to the audience?
Firstly, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here, and it's always nice to share your story. I mean, we all love talking about ourselves, don't we? Particularly if you're someone like me that talks a lot. Used to get into trouble at school all the time. But my journey, look, I'm probably the accidental entrepreneur. I ended up here um, uh, basically following my husband, now boyfriend at the time. He came from a business background with his family, and we're both accountants. I started my career as an accountant 32 years ago, and my hubby Terry wanted to start his own practice, and so I followed him in that journey, and we started the accounting practice 27 years ago. And then about 4 years in, I wanted to get into financial planning, which I had a great passion for. And him being the entrepreneur that he is, said, yeah, sure, go for it, grow the business, let's have another arm to it. And it complements each other so well, obviously, from an accounting point of view. And so off I went and got the credentials to be able to do that, so further education and so forth, and started building the client base and building the business, the financial planning practice. And so between the two, we've been here for 27 years, and it's been, look, I'd never change it. Like, with all anyone in business will tell you it's tough, but it's so rewarding. And I think for me, the best part about it is the fact that I can come in any morning and say, right, I'm going to do this now. I've had an idea overnight, and I'm going to implement this, and I'm going to go down this pathway. Or I've created a new program, or I've created a new service, and I'm going to do this. And away you go, and you can do it. It's brilliant. And there's no committees, and there's no subcommittees. And no offense to anyone with committees, but I can't do committees. And so I guess I ended up in the right place because being an entrepreneur is someone that can do whatever they want, how they want, when they want to do it, right?
When you get to the point of doing it well and not having all the stresses, yeah, absolutely, right? That's the end
Well,
goal.
I'm not sure. Sometimes, like, one of the biggest things I've learned, and I've learned very quickly, is it's called imperfect action. So I'm a self-confessed perfectionist. I drive myself crazy, but one of the best parts about getting older is learning to let go of stuff, which you have to do that. And learning when you're in business as an entrepreneur, you've got to learn to embrace what you're good at, delegate what you're not so good at, and just keep imperfect action. Just keep doing stuff. You've just got to keep doing stuff. It doesn't matter at the end of the day, but being stagnant and not moving ahead is the worst thing you could do. Like procrastination, and I'm the queen of procrastination. I still struggle with it some days. And I have to say to myself, Trace, just do it. Don't worry about it, just do it. And ultimately, you'll find out whether it's right or wrong, and you can realign yourself. So, don't take yourself so seriously. Just do something. Go
Just
with your
move.
gut, trust yourself. Yeah.
How did financial planning come about? What sparked that desire to? It sounds like you were 4 years in, so you'd probably done a lot of the heavy lifting to establish the client base, have a clear market segment you're going after, and then you wanted to start all over.
Yeah. Well, for me, when I was at uni completing my degree, I was always interested in financial planning, but I wanted to obviously complete my degree and do my postgraduate, which was to become a certified practicing accountant. I think you guys have that over in the US as well. So I did that in order to complete my accounting degree, but I always had this interest in investing, and I think it's more sort of future looking, and the creativity around that, and the ability to sort of plan out your life and use your skill set in order to do that. It's a totally different way of looking at things as opposed to accounting. And accounting, once you get to a certain level, when you come out of uni in accounting, for me anyway, the first thing you try and do really well is make sure all the financials are right. I was in tax, so accounting can be you can be a financial accountant, a management accountant. There's, multi facets of accounting. I was in straight tax. So it was always about making sure that the financials are right, the tax deductions are right, da, 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 da. But once you get enough experience, then you open your mind to, how can I help this client better their business? What advice can I give them? What's on the balance sheet? So you obviously, with personal growth and growing as a professional, you then get to that level. So there is creativity in accounting. I'm not bagging out accounting. There is creativity in accounting, but financial planning is at a way different level. And then when you take that background in accounting and mix it with financial planning, then you've got something special. Because I believe that just financial planning without that background is okay, is not bad. And people are going to probably hate me for this, but my accounting background just rounds it off so well, because I'm always looking through that lens, always, as well. I guess everyone does that. But we always bring every element of ourselves to the client meeting, to the business at hand, whether it's our personal experience in investing, our personal experience in, the advice that we've given, our clients' experiences that we have been a part of. When you've sat in front of thousands of clients for 27 years, you got a lot of stuff there, So you're bringing all of that to every single meeting from that point on. Yeah.
Well, I know a lot of the high net worth people that I talk to, the pairing of tax and financial planning go hand in hand all the time, and becomes more and more important, right? The more ventures, the more assets, the more lines of business you have, in terms of how to interact between the two.
100%. And nobody wants to pay any more tax than they have to, and nor should you. There's my tax background, right? I mean, yes, I don't like paying too much tax.
Yep. Clear rules, right? And you can,
yeah,
if you know what the rules are, you can play accordingly, which is good, as long as you know what they all are and how to navigate. But tremendous value there. So, Tracey, as you've been successful and you got to that point where you've got the profitability, you've got the cash flow coming in, didn't have to worry about roof over the head, food on the table. It sounds like one of the first things for you was to go back and pursue, getting that further education, getting the accreditation, starting the financial planning business. As that continued to grow and you had more and more cash flow that was coming in between you and your husband's business, what was the strategic framework for you guys in terms of how you allocated capital, to, was it to grow the business? Was it personal endeavors? Kind of how did you guys think about that?
That's a great question. And again, my husband and I come from very different backgrounds. And again, his background being from a family business background, he was very, very focused on diversifying the assets and not putting everything back into the business. So the way we built our wealth has always been about taking gutsy risks. But can I just say it in this context? You've got to be very comfortable in your cash flow, that your cash flow can support the debt you're about to take on. And so there were times when we would literally buy a property, pay the deposit, and not have the finance organized. But we knew we'd get the finance because we had the great report card, as we call it, with the bank. Because the banks, I mean, we always say, don't trust the banks. They can turn on you at any minute, and they can. You've just got to have the good report card. You've got to make sure that you've got a clean record, and they know you've shown and proven that you can pay down debt, and all is well with them. But we've done stuff like that where we've literally, in the building that I'm in right now, there's I think 6 of them in a row. And so when we first started, we bought this building, then we built upstairs, and then we bought the next one and next one. And I think we own all of them bar one. And when the first one came up next door, we knew we had to have it. It was mad not to buy it. And we did the deal, and then the guy reneged. It happens. Somebody else offered more. So we said, right, what's your price? Let's just do the deal. Cut the crap. What do you want? And he said this. So we gave him a check, and away we went. So we took those risks, and you've got to, you can't, without being, I'm trying to say this in a very responsible way. You've got to know where your lines are, and how far you can go, where your boundaries are, to be able to take those risks and move forward. And sometimes you've just got to push the boundaries. You really do, because if you're always all too careful, then sometimes you're just not going to get to the level that you want to get to. So we've done that all the way through. Diversify outside of your business always, because at the end of the day, your business is only there to support your personal wealth. So I always talk about two sides of the ledger being an accountant. That's my business, and my business is there to support my lifestyle and give me money. And I want to make that as efficient and as profitable as possible. And I can only work that for a certain period of time. Ultimately, one day I've got to stop working. Well, have choice, right? Maybe I want to work a day a week or 2 days or consult or whatever it might be. If I haven't managed over my working life to take the money out of here and put it across to this side in growth assets, assets that put money back into my pocket while I sleep and don't have to go to work, then when I do stop working, what's going to support me? Not the government, I can tell you that. And so, so be mindful of that. That's what your business is there for, to do that, to provide a lifestyle and making sure that you're diversifying across there. Sure, every business needs to invest in itself. That's a given. But don't put every single cent back into your business. You must diversify across to the other side of the ledger, which is your personal wealth. Never ever forget that. Also, over the years, I've had lots of clients saying, I'm going to sell my business and that's my retirement plan. Good luck with that, because a lot of our businesses are personality based, much like mine. They come to see me, Trace, I want to see Trace. And when Tracy's gone, what happens to this business? I don't know. So can I sell it for what I want? Maybe. What if I don't? Does that make sense? So don't bank every single dollar on that business thinking you're going to get what you want, because 9 times out of 10, most of them don't. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and psychologically, we always value what we have more than other people do, right?
Yeah, of course.
And so intrinsically, you're going to think that whatever you have is worth more than it probably is to the open market, which then creates further challenge, right, in terms of what that sales process looks like. You talked about diversifying into the personal side. It sounds like real estate was one of those areas that you guys have invested. Were there a couple other big blocks that you guys invested in terms of creating that diversification, and what were they?
So being a financial advisor, obviously I'm comfortable with all this stuff. So it's an array of investments. We have Australians have a love affair with property. So we obviously love property, and mostly it's commercial. We have a few residential, but they're mostly commercial. My husband also does a lot of development, service stations and commercial buildings to, rent out to businesses and so forth. But outside of that, direct shares, and I love direct shares. I think they're termed as being risky, but they're not really. If you
What is a direct share?
Where you go and you buy the share on the Australian Stock Exchange. So much like you just an ETF, where you just go and buy the share on. You have a trading platform. Do you have a trading platform where you just go and buy the share? Like you go and buy some Apple shares, or I won't talk about our Aussie shares. Amazon shares. You just buy a parcel of shares. So you have a portfolio of their direct shares where they're owned in your name, or you can have, we call them managed funds. You guys call them mutual funds. We're fund managers. What's a fund manager? Like you'll have a perpetual or a what do you guys have over there? Perennial. Have you got perennial? Have you got MLC? You've probably got They're institutions that have people behind them constructing portfolios where you don't have to make the decision. And for example, you can pick a share, you want to invest in some shares, they'll have a pre-selected portfolio for you. The entry is cheaper than being able to buy some direct shares yourself, because you're going to need way more money to do it yourself. And the decision making's outside of your hands as well. You can have a savings plan where you can directly debit money into it, which is fantastic. So it's a very simple and easy way to get into investing. So we have an array of those. So we have managed funds, we have direct shares, we have commercial and residential property, and also my children. So you've got to educate your kids, right? Because I didn't want my kids to have my financial blueprint, which I call my financial blueprint, where you come from in terms of money. We adopt what we see at home. And so the kids also have direct share portfolios. So since they were born, whatever money they got when it was birthdays or Easter or Christmas and stuff like that, I just bank it into their bank accounts. And then as it built up, I just buy some shares. So they've got their own share portfolios as well. And we keep saying to them, anytime they get any money, you must save. So you've got to pay yourself first. And because they live at home, they can do way more than that, minimum 10 to 30%. So we say, what are you going to do with that money, Lucas? Yes, Mom, 30%. Okay, that's good. That's good.
You're like, perfect. If you can continue that for your whole life, you'll be in great shape.
Yeah, I know.
That's awesome.
Wish I knew that. But anyway, I haven't done so bad.
So, and that's a good point. If you were to go back to your earlier self, right, what are one or two things that you would change or you wish you had done differently, right? Obviously, it sounds like the where you came from a financial blueprint different than what you are now and what you're instilling in your kids. You know, what would you have liked to know as you were going through that journey yourself?
So can I just talk about my financial blueprint?
Yeah, please.
So what I mean by financial blueprint is we all come from families that have a certain money pattern or money story or how they interact with money. And so mine was, we lived from paycheck to paycheck. There was no savings. We weren't the family that had to have the cash and then buy it. We went and got the loan and bought it. We had credit cards and we bought discretionary items on credit cards. That's what I saw. I didn't know any different. Money's a skill not taught. And so in my early adult life, I just took that without question and just did that when I started working, because I didn't know any better. And I got myself into a lot of trouble until, things changed for me and I decided to change my life. So that's what I call financial blueprint, because the stories that we hear, the conversations, what we saw with our mum and dad do, whether they said to us, what do you think I am made of money? Whether it was calm and there was plenty of it, or whether it was always, there was never enough and it always felt like you were deprived. And everyone has their own story. And so, and that's always underlying, that's always there. That's always a real issue, unless, I would say you really need to deal with that. So I would have dealt with that if I knew that. And secondly, the most simple thing, if I could articulate this, and even I knew the term compound interest, and we all think we know it, but if you have a look at an example of it and how powerful it is in an example, it will blow your mind. And so if I knew how powerful it was, and that you actually had to wait 5 to 7 years to see the impact of that, but then how that little snowflake turns into a bloody avalanche, so to speak, you just got to be patient. I would have done that from the first time I started working. So I would say to anyone listening, as soon as you start working, I don't care if it's $20, I don't care if it's $10, it's just lunch money. Don't stress about the money, the dollar amount, just start. Just start putting it away, and set yourself up for success. Don't leave it to yourself, to your own devices. Just do a direct debit. just automatic, out into another account, siphon it away for future investing. Right now, just get into the habit. It's the habit we're trying to form. Direct debit, out. So then you live, so then whatever's left in your account, you, funnily enough, adapt to it and you don't even think about it. And one day, a month or two later, you look at this other account, you go, oh, God, I didn't realize. How cool's that? But if you did that from your early 20s and just allowed that to happen all the way through, the power of that, no one would have money problems. Everyone would retire millionaires, 100%. No word of a lie.
But that would just destroy the consumerist culture in our entire world.
Wouldn't it?
It'd be shocking.
Yes. Maybe that's why they're not telling anyone.
Yeah, definitely not the big corporation, right? Spend more, finance here, right? Figure out those different things. You had mentioned, as you're talking about your blueprint, that you had made a choice to change your life. What was that experience? It sounds like there was a definitive moment or experience for you. Kind of what was that, and how did you pull yourself from one end to the other?
Do you want to hear the story?
I do.
Okay,
sharing the story.
Yeah,
Okay.
I've shared it multiple times. Okay, so this is pre-internet phone days. This is quite showing my age now. So I had a credit card, and it was very early in the piece, prior to me coming into accounting, because I wasn't the perfect student going straight from high school to uni. I had a bit of a sabbatical, a bit of fun in between. Anyway, needless to say, and I'd worked in a few places, and I had a credit card. And back in those days, we used to get the statements and monthly statements. And I got my monthly statement, and I opened it up, and I had blown out my credit card, the limit, totally blown. And so I'm looking at this statement, and I'm having this out-of-body experience where, because I'm living from paycheck to paycheck, I can't pay this back, right? Like, I'm kind of like having a panic attack. And I'm doing the thing where you go, is this me? Is that right? Is this, like, you're having this moment of disbelief? And then obviously trying to rationalize, then the brain goes into rationalization mode and says, oh, I've worked it out. It wasn't me. I've been hacked. So I convinced myself I'd been hacked, and I had to get to the bank and shut down the credit card as soon as possible. And again, as I say, we didn't have phones to do all of this sort of stuff. So with that, I grabbed the keys, jump in the car, get to the bank, and really nervous and waiting in line and waiting to be called up, and my knees are going to buckle from under me, and just about to hyperventilate and stuff like that. Anyway, she says next, and I go up to the counter and grab the counter, and like verbal diarrhea. I told her the story, and she said, well, just a minute, Trace, let's just have a look what's going on. They did have those, monitors back in those days. And she turns around and she reads out each transaction. And as she reads them out, they're me, of course, they're all mine. Oops. And with that, totally embarrassed with my tail between my legs, grabbed the piece of paper and said, thanks very much. Walked out of the bank, and standing there outside the bank thinking, what the hell am I going to do now? And thought, how did this happen? Like, how did I get here? What is going on? Like, that was probably the most demoralizing moment. And I thought, I'm never going to do this again. I'm done. This is not happening to me ever again. And the credit card was with a different bank to the bank that I was banking with. So I just knew I had to go to my bank, convert that to a personal loan, cut it up, and pay that down in 12 months. So I did that. I walked across to my other bank and said, I have this problem. Can I please have a personal loan? And the credit cards in Australia are around 20 to 25%. Personal loans back in those days, and they're still probably sort of the same, 10, 11, maybe 12%, because it's an unsecured personal loan. And so that's what I did. They converted that across to a personal loan, and I still had my mortgage because I'd bought a house at the time. and I wanted to pay it off in 12 months, so that repayments were quite high. And I did that, and I cut it up, and that was it. I was done. And not long after that, I started my accounting degree, and not long after that, I met my husband. And so with my profession and with coming into contact with someone like my husband who has a totally different financial blueprint to myself, that really helps. The environment you're in and the people you're hanging with, be careful who you're hanging with, right? Totally will help. Having said that, I just want to clarify one thing. My financial blueprint is still there. It's not like, oh gosh, I'm cured. No. It's still there. It like my first instincts are still, oh, what can I buy with this money? I mean, that's just my first instinct, but I now know better. I have strategies in place. I have direct debits that come out of my wages from the business pays me my wage, and I have a direct debit that pays myself first. I have strategies in place to stop me from hurting myself any further financially, is what I'm trying to say. Yeah. You've always got to be in touch with yourself.
Was the biggest thing for you just changing the spending habits, or were there other component? It was, so the income you had from the different jobs was enough to support. It was just the spending habits and the blueprint that you had come from that informed the behavior that needed to change.
Yeah, there was just no regard for money. There was no understanding of, okay, this has come in. Now what do I do with it? It was, this has come in, it's going out. What do you mean pay yourself? What does that mean? Saving. Hey, saving for what? What are you talking about? I didn't know. I didn't think about it. No one taught me. I mean, my parents didn't say, you've got a job, come here, here's a savings account, here's your little passbook. You need to put money in here. I didn't know any better. I didn't even think about it, to be quite honest.
It's I'm in the financial industry as well, and that, like, there's a couple conversations that have stuck with me. One where people have no idea how they get credit, or how they're rated. I had one person who literally thought the credit card was paid by someone else. Didn't know they had to, like, just, yeah. And it's like the level of financial literacy, to your point, money skill, is just not taught. It's not taught at home, right? It's seen as taboo in the home, and it's not taught in schools, right? And it's just something you're told to figure out as you go, and it's scary for a lot of people who have no understanding, right? And they follow what they saw and growing up, and oftentimes that's not the best.
And you know what's interesting? In my job, I come across a multitude of clients. So I always talk about the example of, I have a client who's high-end HR manager. She is on something like, in Australian dollars, 450,000. That's huge. And then bonuses. And then I've got a client who's a blue-collar worker, works in a factory, does overtime, at a push gets 120. 450 versus 120. Would you believe me if I said he was better off than her?
That's crazy.
And your mind's going, how is that possible? It's possible because she's got my financial blueprint. Hello. It doesn't matter what you make. It matters what you keep and then what you do with it. See, it's not what you make, because we all make money. What you keep and then what you do with that money.
Yeah, that's great advice.
And that's what I didn't know. And that's what I try and teach now. Yeah.
As we're nearing the end of our time, Tracey, if you were to leave one piece of advice for an entrepreneur that's kind of going through that journey, getting to that point of profitability, what would that be?
Do you mean after they're profitable?
They're getting to that point and they're starting to see the profitability, right? But they're not at the point where the company is scaling, right? Usually they're still smaller. A lot of it is the owner is still involved, right? But they've got money that's coming in, right? So they're profitable. What should they do? What would be the first step that you would encourage them to do?
Keep going. Keep creating and keep going. And don't get complacent. Don't get complacent. Don't think, I've worked it out now, I've done it now, this is it. Because there's no this is it. There's continuous growth and continuous journey. Keep pushing, keep creating, keep moving. don't sit still. It doesn't, you know, when you just start making the first level of profits, it's brilliant. It feels like, oh, it's like, oh, I can take a load off. Yes, you can, but not for too long. Yes, don't get complacent. And I'm guessing they're loving what they're doing. Otherwise they wouldn't do it. But it's an interesting question. When you said that, I sort of thought, oh, what would I say here? And having said what I've just said, the biggest thing for an entrepreneur is to personal development. Personal development. You must continue to grow. You must continue to open your mind and grow and evolve. And I'm guessing most entrepreneurs are like that, because that's what sparks them, really. I find it very difficult to be in the company of people that don't believe in personal growth. I can't hang with them because I can't communicate with them. They frustrate me. So I don't.
That's probably why you talk to a lot of entrepreneurs then, I would imagine, and less corporate folk.
Yeah, definitely. We speak the same language.
Yep, that makes sense. For the audience that wants to connect back with you, Tracey, what's the best way for them to do that?
Well, there's lots of ways. I'm just trying to think. Well, there is my website, which is the usual W's, tracysofra.com.au, AU for Australia, obviously. So you can get on that website. So I don't want to confuse anyone. That's probably the easiest way. And then from there, you'll see all the other links that I have. I run a women's group called Wow Women Group. So wowwomen.com.au is another one, but you can find it through Tracey Sofra, Tracey with an EY, Sofra, SOFRA.com.au, and everything will link from there.
Awesome. Appreciate the time and the insights today, Tracey. It was a pleasure having you.
Thanks, Liam.